Friends, happy to meet you all again in this In Conversation with show. This is the 30th episode which I'm hosting now. As usual, I've been meeting the business leaders and business tycoons of India Inc. from across the country. And today we have with us Mr. Samir Vakil, who's the co-founder and chief executive officer of GlobalLinker.com. Welcome, Mr. Samir, for this show.
Thank you. Thank
Thank
you. And
you.
congratulations on your 30th episode.
Thank you so much for your time and your nice gesture. So before we get on to our conversation, I thought I will take 2 minutes of your time to introduce your profile to the viewers of our channel. Uh, Mr. Samir Vakil is an industry veteran who has worked in banking, payments, consumer goods industry in leadership roles in multiple geographies like India, Japan, USA in a global role for about 20 plus years before starting his own venture, GlobalLinker.com. In his earlier roles, Samir worked as a president and regional director, Citi Cards Japan, and the MD Global Direct Banking, Citibank New York, President MasterCard South Asia, founding CEO GE Capital joint venture with State Bank of India, regional head consumer banking HSBC, and national sales and marketing head HSBC Cards. Samir Vakil is a co-founder and chief executive officer of Global Liquor. Is a strong believer and a practitioner of the partnership growth model and of digitally delivered customer-centric solutions, which is the talk of the day, talk of the era today. Global Linker is a unique SME networking portal that invites financial organizations and banks to offer co-branded versions of their platform to assist their SME customers in growing their businesses and accordingly becoming an integral part of their ecosystems as well. In a short span, Global Linker has been launched in 3 countries, and the partners include 4 financial institutions, Government of India, and significant trade bodies as well. With this short note, Mr. Samir, I'd like to get on to the conversation mode. I hope you're ready.
Sure.
Uh,
Absolutely.
Mr. Samir, when I visited globallinker.com, straight away I'm coming to the topic. I found that 3 fascinating metrics which really pulls everyone to look at your site quite often. I also checked out with my MSME fraternity as well. One, you said
Right.
in the portal, 210 curated industries that has been worked out by your organization, Global Linker. Two, you talked about 270,000 SME network connected. And three, very
Right.
importantly, the learning curve, 10,000 content resources. The resources are being connected with the
Sure.
global linker. These are the 3 important metrics which really excites me. Before I get on to that, I just want you
Sure.
to share about your 20 plus years of corporate journey, length and breadth of the world.
Yeah, so thank you first for having me and congratulations on what you're doing over here. I think very happy to play a small part in any information dissemination, but I'm equally here to learn from our interaction. My journey, professional journey, has actually taken me into what I would describe as sunrise industries. So I was in payments and digital payments and cards at a time when cards were not as popular in the country in India. I later moved and expanded my opportunities from being in a bank that was issuing credit cards. I moved to an organization that was going to be processing very, very large scale business transactions with the G Capital joint venture with State Bank of India, which led to the SBI cards business. So I was the founding CEO of that company. And I set up a back-end processing infrastructure for significant scale. From there, I moved on to a role where I was managing a franchise with MasterCard and trying to create new payment solutions and expand the market opportunity in India, including the time when debit cards were introduced for the first time. So I've had 3 different flavors when it comes to just banking and payment cards as such. So that was very interesting. I then moved overseas and I was in Japan, where I was handling a significant business. This was the largest credit card business for Citi outside of the US. Japan has always been a country and a region. So I was also part of the global card strategy, and I landed or played a role which was completely new to me in a new geography to that extent. So that was interesting. And then that got me into another sunrise industry, which was digitization, because I inherited a business in Japan with Citi, which was significantly built on a digitized platform. And that's what I took for a global role when I moved to New York. So I think two threads that seem to have followed me in some way. Number one is this whole sunrise industries of what is becoming or likely to become more commonplace, whether it was payment cards, whether it was debit cards later on, or it happened to be digitization in a sense. And I think now I'm taking that to a next level with not just looking at digitization as a business model, but focusing on how MSMEs may be able to digitize and grow their business. I think that's a very, very important topic. And I think that's what's going to define the next maybe 10 or more years to follow from here. So very interesting juncture to be at. So that's a common thread. I've always tried to be in sunrise spaces in a way. The second really is that my entire career that I can look back on was centered on one single principle of partnership, which said if one or more organizations collaborate together, they can achieve far more than what they would individually have been able to, or the collective power of what they would have individually been able to achieve. So that's kind of grown in me. And GlobalLinker is in fact a very good example of building a partnership model. On top of that partnership model is an ecosystem. And that ecosystem actually creates interoperability, which is not a very common occurrence. And that's really what makes it interesting. So my past experience is what has led me to where I am today and where I'm looking over the next 10, 20 years to build a solution that helps small and medium enterprises digitally transform themselves in the most cost-effective manner and in a way that will help the GDP of all the nations that they participate in. So that's in a nutshell, tracing back.
Wonderful, Samir. Very, very nicely you put across the journey of 20 years plus and the GlobalLinker's main objective. So looking back, the three
Sure.
metrics that I have shared by learning from your website, that it's something
Right.
interesting to look at 270,000 SME network with 10,000 content resources, and then 210 industries being curated. Would you be able to share such,
Right.
the knowledge to the people who are watching this, MSMEs especially?
Sure. So firstly, even before we go into that, and one small correction, because the site needs to be updated from time to time, that's become 350,000 SMEs, what was 270,000. So, as time passes, especially during COVID, there's been a significant movement. But that apart, I think the whole idea of GlobalLinker and what we are doing and those three elements that you pulled out, I think goes back to saying that while we refer to MSMEs as small and medium enterprises, their dreams for their business are anything but small or medium. The dreams for their businesses are always very big. Nobody comes in to say, I'm going to stay the same size as yesterday. They all want to grow. However, there is a reality. The reality is that we all operate in a competitive environment. We all operate in a place where, as unit level organizations, we don't have economies of scale. We don't buy enough to be able to get the lowest rate. We don't sell enough to be able to create a whole infrastructure around us to help us sell more, etc. But does that mean that we will remain small only because we are small today? And then comes the problem that every organization that may want to help an SME, either with their own products and services. Yes, everybody has an agenda to sell their products or solutions to you. But if those solutions help you grow, they are good things for all of us also. But when they come to the small business to offer them that service, the cost of finding the small business, the cost of explaining the solution and finally getting a sale effected, and thereafter to continue to service the small business for the solution that has been bought, makes it prohibitive for most organizations. As a result, the cycle starts, which is like a never ending or a downward spiral, that they have to recover more from you. They need higher margins to make it sort of feasible for them to service you, and therefore the costs go up. And because the costs go up, it doesn't become competitive for a small business owner, and the cycle is vicious. It continues. It, in fact, just continues and the velocity grows with that. We wanted to break that cycle. We said, how do you break that cycle? And the simple answer lay in, the classic example, we talk about the fingers of the palm or the hand versus the wrist, the fist rather. When you put everything together, SMEs are a formidable strength. But when they are individually taken, they are too small and too unit sized. So we dreamt of a solution where if we could bring SMEs onto one single global platform and give them two things: collective efficiencies and collective economies of scale, that could change their life and it would break this vicious cycle we have all been trapped in. The reason for that is when I create a solution for your business as a small business, and then I have to create it for another person and another person and another person, I could actually make that solution in such a way which is parameterized that even 100 SMEs could use it, 1,000 could use it, 10,000 or even 10 million can use the same solution, which can be repurposed for all of them. That means that my cost of delivering it to 1 million people is almost the same as delivering it to the first individual. Right. So that's what we meant by collective efficiencies. Why don't we create solutions that fit all SMEs and they can adapt that solution and use it for themselves? I don't have an incremental cost in distributing that service to them, number one. Number two, when I take the collective purchasing power of small businesses, I can not only offer them services at a lower rate, commercial rate, because I'm combining their buying power, but also I can do the selection for them. I can offer the suitability to them. If they have service issues, I also have the ability to sort problems in the service delivery of that solution so that a small business also has the voice of a Fortune 100 company. Why should they be treated any shabbily or worse than anybody else? Because they don't have a voice, because they are too small at the unit level. But the moment we collectively bring them, not only are we creating efficiencies of money, which means we save you money, save you most importantly time and effort in availing of those services, because everybody is evaluating services. They come back with their own individual conclusions with their limited knowledge. Then they try and avail of those services at the higher rates that I described earlier. And there's a lot of time that goes in all of this, which is most precious for small businesses. So GlobalLinker was created as a common global platform for small businesses to come in, avail of services of collective efficiencies, because we've got a whole range of tool sets. We've got a whole range of partnerships with organizations who service SMEs. And then we offer you the collective economies of scale. So once you bring these three things together, that's where you come in. So the 10,000 knowledge pieces that are on GlobalLinker are created by a lot of SMEs who are specialists in their own areas. So a specialist HR firm, which is a small business, can advise a lot of other small businesses on good HR practices. We don't have to produce all of the content. We have an editorial team. A lot of the 10,000 content is produced by us, but about 70 to 80% have been produced by other small businesses. A lot of that content has been provided by trade bodies and associations who are trying to educate people on their vertical areas of specialization. So this is the power of the collective power of many coming together. This is the power of many. And when organizations come together into one platform, therefore the 350,000 SMEs that are there have the ability to do business with each other because they are on one single common platform. They don't need to introduce each other to themselves. They are all part of one family, each trying to grow their business. Many of them are potential suppliers to each other. Many of them are potential clients to each other. And that's what we are trying to allow them to freely mingle with each other and find business opportunities. Excellent. That is the crux of GlobalLinker.
Excellent. The three things which are typically like a takeaway for me. One is the scalability that you are talking about. Two is about economies of scale.
Absolutely.
Three is about the collective force by which all of us can grow in multitudes.
Absolutely.
That's fantastic.
So that's right. The power of many, as we call it.
Absolutely. Having said this, there is also an inherent challenge that we see in the country. Though you're talking about global increase for the global market, it's just not for the India. But having said that, look at the Indian MSME segment. Since I represent the MSME ecosystem at this part of the country, we know that the data says that 63 million MSMEs are registered with the government of India. I mean, there are many to be registered, of course, with Udayam registration portal, which I'm aggressively promoting it in the MSME circles, that they have to register, come and grow with the government of India. So 63 million companies, which means 6.3 crores MSMEs in the country, out of which I find the data, if I really dive deep, 85 to 90% of the companies are micro and small.
Correct.
and probably maybe less than 1 crore or less than 5 crore kind of category. And there are about only
Yes.
5% who are coming under the medium, and then maybe 2 to
Yes.
5% are in the enterprise category, MSME category. So
Correct.
how do you look at
That's correct.
India as a country with so much of organizations here and there operating out of length and breadth of India? How do we consolidate
Sure.
the efforts of everyone?
Yeah. So I think, first of all, I have to also maybe mention the mission statement of GlobalLinker, and that will lead to the response to your question. We are all about making the business growth of SMEs or MSMEs globally simpler, more profitable, and enjoyable. Now, we want MSMEs to enjoy what they are doing. They are very passionate. They are probably the most passionate group of people, working people you can think, who come every day to their shops, who come to their factories, come to their offices with great amount of enthusiasm. Even though life is difficult for them, I think they have never a dull moment. They hardly ever take time off. They enjoy doing what they are doing. They should enjoy it more. How can we make things simpler for them? Now, these are qualitative things, but I talked about business growth being more profitable. Now, that business growth and profitability comes across four aspects. How can we help MSMEs grow their revenues? How can we help them reduce their unit costs? How can we help them operate more efficiently? And how can we help them expand their opportunities more than the rate at which the industry is growing? So if I'm a local player, how do I become a statewide player? If I'm statewide, how do I become national? If I'm national, how do I go into exports probably, right? Or into international markets? That is expansion. So how do we do that? Now, that is really the focus. At the other end, what you talked about is the segment is extremely heterogeneous. No two MSMEs are the same. I mean, forget same, they just can't, very often can't even be compared. Even if they are in the same business and happen to have offices next to each other, their style of operating could be completely different. So what we believe is that for MSMEs in this juncture, and we are at a very interesting cusp in history when we look back, COVID and 2020, which used to be referred to as the vision, right? 2020 was a vision, perfect vision on the one side, and people used to make plans for 2020 to say, what will your business be like in 2020? But it's taken us to a different point altogether. And I think we have to use this as an opportunity to reinvent ourselves. We feel that because of what happened, especially during the pandemic year, it was just a coincidence. We were all in the midst of a complete cusp where we had to reinvent our business. And to do that, what you need really is a fishing rod rather than fish. Which really means until now, MSMEs have always looked for saying, what is the easiest way for me to find a customer? What we need to do is to create capabilities so that we can nurture our customers and grow them altogether. Every MSME in the country, especially retailers, for example, are seeing 15 to 20% reduced footfalls year on year. The question is, what are these MSMEs doing and where are their customers going? Their customers are shopping after 9 o'clock when the stores are closed. So they are going online shopping from the convenience of maybe their sofas or their beds or whatever they are doing. Now, if we don't get present in those markets where our customers are going and we don't accept the kind of payments our customers are using, which means we've got to move with time. In fact, we have to move ahead of time. That is why what we have decided to create is a solution set that any MSME can use. And there is no entry barrier because it's a free solution. You don't pay a price for anything that you avail of. But if you are able to digitize your business and take it to a next level, however the heterogeneous nature of the MSME may be, they are able to use common sets of capabilities to drive the business in their way. Now, let me take that same analogy of the fishing rod. One MSME might go to a pond and look for fish over there. The same MSME or a similar MSME equally could go to the ocean and look for the big fish over there as well. The fishing rod can work the same way. It's a question of where you choose to fish. So I think the heterogeneity can also be answered as long as we provide common tools that will help them be better prepared for the emerging future. And that's what the focus for most businesses needs to be.
Okay. So that's interesting. Really, it's a very, very interesting time. As you rightly said, we are all in the interesting times as well. But looking at the MSMEs, I would say the mindset. Not only we talk a lot about mindset challenges which MSME entrepreneurs have. It is not their problem.
Yes.
It is also the environment in which the organizations have been built in different parts of the country. there is no scientific
Sure.
process being created for their organization to run. Most of the entrepreneurs, in my
Right.
understanding, little understanding, if I may be wrong, they're all technopreneurs. So how do we move the
Sure.
technopreneurship to entrepreneurship? So what kind of methodology or the pedagogy that we need to follow for this?
I would actually drive in the reverse direction. I would make the entrepreneurs into techpreneurs. And I'll tell you that's very simple in today's day and age. That's the beauty of the times that we live in. All of us as MSMEs should consider ourselves very fortunate. Now it's up to us what we do with the times we live in. Let me take an example of, in my mind, maybe the least qualified individuals in terms of learning or eligibility from an academic standpoint, who are running 100% digitized businesses today.
Mm-hmm.
And that would be the radio cab driver,
Mm-hmm.
or what we call the Ola or the Uber driver.
Correct.
Their businesses, they're all business people, they're all entrepreneurs.
Correct.
They are running 100% digitized solutions.
Yes.
Their business is fully digitized other than the vehicle that they drive, right? Whether it's the booking, whether it's the customer pickup, whether it's the route they follow, or it is the way they get paid, or the way they get rated, or the way they rate their customers. 100% digitized. So they are techpreneurs. They are not traditional entrepreneurs, they are techpreneurs. But what made them techpreneurs?
Mm-hmm.
The times that we live in, technology, the complications of the technology lie behind the curtain. Mm-hmm. What you as an MSME would see is really just a click of a few buttons which you can recognize. And because it's your business, nobody knows your domain better than you do. As long as you press the right buttons, the system will do the rest for you. We live at a time where we can accept payments from anywhere in the world in any form.
Yes.
We live at a time where our customers can be identified. We live at a time where our products can be distributed anywhere in the world. The only constraints we have are in our minds. Because I'm local, because I'm very small, yes. Do we even realize that the data centers that we are operating today, the Fortune 100 companies are using data centers that are equally either the same or maybe inferior, right? Because of common use spaces that we are using, we are actually using state-of-the-art data centers which have got all the protection and control you could ask for. Absolutely. And it's a pay-as-you-go service. So you're not even having big infrastructures. So I don't think there was a more interesting time to do business as a small business owner than today. Today, you are only limited by your own dreams and your own imagination. There are solutions, and GlobalLinker is one such solution. I'm not only talking about that, but GlobalLinker, for example, is available to MSMEs free. They can create an e-commerce store. They can create a supply chain solution. They can create a networking solution. They've got access to knowledge, and it's completely free. Even the e-commerce store, you don't pay 1 rupee for the account creation. You don't pay 1% of discount or commission. So what is stopping us from growing? I think it is entrepreneurs should think of themselves as technologists. If you are operating as powerful a device as your smartphone, you're on WhatsApp and you're chatting with your clients and customers, everything, you're already a techpreneur. It's a question of, are you using the tech that you are actually got in your hands to think about your business, or are you constrained in the mind? I think the moment we remove the constraints from our mind, 100% of businesses, if the Uber driver can operate a 100% digital business, no reason why somebody else should not be able to.
Wonderful.
I think if we get over that constraint and that small size, we will all have, the future before us to grow. I'll take 2 examples during the pandemic of 2 retailers that we are talking to. One is a sports store that operates in Mumbai. They started to say that, why do we want even customers coming into our stores? Why don't we give them the ability to order sports goods from their home during the lockdown period? Because they were digital and digitally enabled, they had higher sales than even usual on home gym equipment and on all the other things that are required for people to stay healthy and fit at home, right? On the other side, there was an organization that was selling kitchen and home goods out of their stores. And suddenly they said, rather than people coming and just buying one item at a time, why don't we talk about a kitchen makeover? Because when people spend so much time at home, they realized that, their kitchens were not as well equipped as they would like. A lot of men started going into the kitchen, which was not very usual in the past. And then they have a different way of managing the kitchen and operating. And they said, what about a kitchen makeover? What about a home makeover? Now, these are businesses that were using digital capabilities that they had with their imagination and thinking to say, why should I keep complaining about my store being closed and nobody coming to my store? If the customers can't come to my store, can I take my store to the customers?
Absolutely.
So that's really the thinking we need to bring in.
Wonderful. Wonderful. I mean, you beautifully said so many finer points. One of the points which I got really fascinated is a level playing field today. We always say whether
Absolutely.
Mr. Bill Gates wants to check Google, he has to only go to google.com. If I have to go to
That's correct.
visit some information, I have to type only google.com. So it's a level playing field for anybody
Right.
in this world. So wonderfully, you put across all your inputs towards the transformation of the mindset of the MSMEs and entrepreneurs. Thank you very much for that. Then we'll move on to the next category of question, which is about the sector wise. Let us say there are two things which always look at: manufacturing and service sector. India being the today the service economy is more in Indian context.
Yes.
A demographic dividend we have, that the human capital is so high, and being a 1.35 billion population, so we move towards a
Right.
lot of things towards service industry. I would say one of the records statistics says close to about 65, 70%, even 80%. This economy is on service economy. So maybe 20,
Right.
25% are into the manufacturing or production. So how do you look at this
Sure.
metrics?
So firstly, I would say that these are trends, and businesses follow opportunities at the end of the day. I think wherever there is opportunity, businesses will find themselves going. I remember the time in the 70s, 80s where the industrial development centers were opened. A lot of people opened factories at that time, right? Later on, capital and access to capital became hard. Services industry do not require too much of capital outlay, so you can get into that. We are also a services oriented country. I think what the BPOs did with the language, agnosticity in a sense, etc., helped that to emerge. And I think services is a very good segment for us to focus on as a country. It's also an evolved state one gets into. However, I want to emphasize and underscore that it cannot be at the cost of manufacturing, or we should not de-emphasize the manufacturing side, because that's where I think the whole industrial growth that can come for the country. I think a good balance is good. We can't go on to one side completely. So I think when I started, I said that businesses follow opportunities. What has started to happen now more is our Western markets have become more consumption markets, and our Eastern markets, including India, have become more the producer markets where production happens. Also, we have the pleasure of being in a country like India where the domestic growth and demand itself is huge, right? So when you combine this together, everything points towards good quality manufacturing facilities, and that really being the next wave that people should be looking at. I would say if people can start looking at and by the way, as Indians, we always have an engineering mindset. Even if you're not a qualified engineer, we are all used to, whether it's repairing your own cycle during your younger ages or it was fixing things at home, we all have an engineering bent of mind, if I can say so. So I think it's not only to be a technocrat to be in manufacturing. As long as there is a commercial opportunity, I think the world is starting to change, especially when you look at green tech, when you start to look at which way the future is going. We sit in an interesting time. I'll just take one example to illustrate the point I'm making. If we look at saying that what is going to happen to the automotive sector when you have, the fuel or alternate fuel vehicles coming along, what happens when we get into self-driven vehicles and cars, etc. And just taking the automotive sector, where we used to have a lot of metallic parts, are all being replaced by more aerodynamic, more plastic and other components sort of driving that. What is it doing to that industry? So if somebody can just sit about that and say, yes, I have a background in automobiles, I have this experience from the past, but when I look forward, what do I see as changes happening? And then if we can find opportunities to be in the manufacturing space, that's a huge opportunity. It's the same thing. What is our mindset and how much into the future are we looking? Catch early trends and then go after that. Find the technology, and access to technology is also democratized. Today you can try and find, I mean, even homes are being built using a 3D printer technology.
Mm.
So we really don't know which way the world is going. We just have to keep our minds open, and you'll find the solution that is looked at. But I would encourage people to look at manufacturing, because India has humongous opportunity to be the provider for the world, especially after the pandemic. I think some fundamentals have changed. I won't go into the specifics, but it's very clear that India the center of gravity is moving towards India when it comes to manufacturing. Huge opportunity.
Absolutely. Pharma is one such an example, right? So
Absolutely.
vaccine, government of India like Bharat Biotech and really making a huge waves around the world.
Exactly right.
Having said that, I have another two questions to wrap up our interview. One is about
Sure.
the sector specific. Like if you say, manufacturing service sector is a broad term. If you dive deep,
Right.
when I look at the site, you have mentioned 210 curated industries. So I want you to throw
Right.
some light on the curation that you have done.
Sure. Sure. So, firstly, when we bring a small business onto GlobalLinker, our idea is to help them in those four areas, help them with their revenues, help them with their reduced expenses, manage more efficiently, as well as to be able to expand their business. Now, we need to know about their business to begin with. Now, what we do is first we decide or divide MSMEs that enter into the platform into 37 unique industries. Then those industries we further break down into sub industries, and that's where the 210 plus come along. Because a and then of course we try and find out what line of business they are in. Are they in manufacturing? Are they in trading? Are they in wholesale or retail or whatever they might be in? And what type of firm is it? Is it a private limited, an LLP, or is it a sole proprietorship or a partnership, etc.? And what type of employees they have, etc. So based on 6 or 8 parameters of data, we can start getting a reasonable sense of what these people are looking to sell, what are they looking to buy, so what do they offer, what do they seek, and how do you guess they must be operating their business, and therefore what solutions are relevant to them. So to personalize the experience to the extent possible, so moving from a very vastly heterogeneous to subsections of homogeneous, and within that homogeneity there will be heterogeneity, which is understood, but how do we now zone in on those groupings? That's where, whether it is the knowledge pieces in terms of what is happening in the world around you, what trends are we seeing, so news for your industry from various sources, interesting reading and knowledge components that are relevant to you, features and functionality that are relevant to you, business connections that are relevant to you, events that are relevant to you, can start getting addressed to them. And then, based on their preferences and behavior, the algorithm starts learning to
Mhm.
say Samir does not seem to look for people closer to Mumbai, but he seems to be looking outside of his state. Somebody else is looking at international connections, so let's show him more of international. That's where the behavior and preferences start coming in. But it all starts with the 37 industries, 210 sub-industries is where it begins, because everybody in an industry vertical, whether they are a micro-sized organization or a mega organization, intrinsically their needs are the same. They're still addressing that domain on different scales. So
Mhm.
that's really why very, very important to understand the industry and the sub-industry and the activities that are involved to be able to serve MSMEs in the right way.
Wonderful. Wonderful. I have my final last question to you on this conversation. Keeping one,
Sure.
I would say, a larger framework, but I'm going to connect multiple spokes to that. The larger framework is like,
Sure.
how do one can leverage, utilize the support of globallinker.com as a portal. Who are the spokes? I would
Right.
say women entrepreneur, student entrepreneur, social entrepreneur, and MSMEs and startup. So would you have answer? I mean,
Right.
and consultants and professionals and consultants like us. So how do
Sure.
one can really
Sure.
make use of globallinkers.com for their advantage as well as for serving the community at large?
Sure. So I think, firstly, and I'll go back to where I began. I began with two statements, if you'd recall. One, I said that there are no small and medium dreams. Dreams of entrepreneurs, even, and I would add to your spokes, I would also add one more, which is aspiring entrepreneurs. So it could even be them, right? So if you're in a job and you're looking to be an entrepreneur, or you're a student who's maybe in future considering entrepreneurship, why not? And that's where the leveling of the playing field becomes very important. So I
True.
think, one, the dreams are very large on the one side. The second is that we should not be constrained in our mind, because today we've got solutions like never before. People can actually get to business without the traditional capital requirements or the technology know-how or everything. Everything has gotten democratized. What we have been able to do, or what we would encourage people to do, and I sorry, there's a third thought which I should bring in also. I talked about GlobalLinker, the whole mindset being of partnerships. So when we talk about an academic institute, they should think of themselves as a partner to GlobalLinker, demand on us what are the facilities we can offer to their students, either as aspiring entrepreneurs or otherwise. Women, we've got a lot of solutions for women, including the ability to create community of women within GlobalLinker so that they can start, because their needs might be very different and they are very different in some respects, but they can get all the services and facilities in one place. So you name every segment, whether in the way you divided them or by size, even if it's a micro entrepreneur, for example, in 20 categories, including as a grocer, one can create a multi-brand grocery store on GlobalLinker without paying a rupee, without paying a commission, in under 10 minutes. 300 products from multiple brands in less than 10 minutes. If you have a footwear store, you have a mobile phone store, you have a computer hardware store, all of these categories, you can create an e-commerce store in less than 10 minutes. Now, why should that be a constraint for anybody to do business and to go digital? So that's really the way it was. I would think there are more partnership opportunities for people in academia, for people in consulting, for people as trade bodies and associations who are representing several MSMEs, and all of these MSMEs are looking up to the trade body for direction on what they should be doing. We have partnership opportunities at GlobalLinker, which can help all of them consume this, irrespective of size, irrespective of domain. We'd like to cover the whole universe, and you're right, we are global. We are currently in Philippines and Thailand in addition to India. This year we will be in many more countries. I would hope another 5 or 6 new countries will come in. Then why should India not take advantage of an organization that was born in India and is now trying to digitize MSMEs around the world? I would love to see more organizations in India benefit or partner with us. So we are very, very open to those. So thank you.
Absolutely, absolutely, Samir. And I think you covered it really length and breadth of the world in this conversation. I'm sure this conversation definitely would reach the critical mass of MSME and startup and the aspirational entrepreneurs, the future entrepreneurs, to make use of the opportunity. You said not even spending 1 rupee, 1 paise, one can really launch their digital platform, the digital business through your platform. So I'm really happy. I'm so delighted to have conversation with you. Thank you very much. I hope you enjoyed this conversation, and look forward to interact with you.
Absolutely, the feeling was very mutual. Thank you very much for having me, Anand, and wonderful to converse with you. Thank you.
Thank you, Samir.
All the very best.
Thank you so much.